Now, as I get into the story of the FairTax, just remember these things. Corporations don't pay taxes. Businesses don't pay taxes. They collect them from customers, from employees, and from owners, shareholders. Pass them on to the government. Number two, most people in this country do not have any clue how much taxes they actually pay. And number three, our tax code is a massive source of power for politicians in Washington, D.C. And oh, by the way, one more thing I would like you to know. The graduated income tax, the system we're operating right now, was mandated, if you will, suggested, if you want to be kinder, in the Communist Manifesto well over 100 years ago by Karl Marx. The graduated income tax was deemed to be absolutely necessary if you were going to take a country into the paradise of communism. Oh, and by the way, so was public education. Okay, how did this all come about? Toward the end of the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th, in other words, from the 1990s into the early 2000s in this country, we had three businessmen in Houston, Texas, fabulously wealthy businessmen. Leo Lindbeck, Jack Trotter, and Bob McNair. He's now the owner of the Houston Texans football team, and I believe the other two have passed. At any rate, back in the 1990s, these men, well, in the late 1900s, these men, all in Houston, they sort of had a little hobby among themselves. In addition to running their businesses, they like to get together and tackle impossible problems. Hey, there's this. Hey, there's that. How could we address this problem that's been bothering people so long? How could we address that problem? They came up with solutions, for instance, in Texas government education, public schools, that really improved education in the state of Texas. But at any rate, as lore has it, and I've met and talked with all of these people, as I said, they were all very, very successful and all members of boards of directors of various corporations. And when they got together for golf or whatever, they would often complain about board of directors meetings and how much time they had to spend on tax issues. I mean, at each board of directors meeting, they spent far more time, it seems, worrying about the tax consequences of various corporate moves that they might recommend or vote against, the tax consequences, than they did about the advancement of the actual business. Taxes, taxes, taxes. So finally, as it goes, one of these men said to the other, you know, we spend all our time talking about taxes. Why don't we do something about it? You mean, why don't we come up with another tax system for this country, better than the Internal Revenue Service, better than the graduated income tax, better than corporate and business income taxes? Yeah, let's come up with something better. So they put a bunch of money, over $20 million of their money, into the effort of finding a better tax system for this country. They hired economists from schools like MIT and Chicago. They did research. They did public focus groups. They talked to businessmen, to politicians, and among themselves, they said, whatever this working group comes up with, whatever sort of a tax plan they come up with, we're going to get behind it, and we're going to push it because it'll make things better in our country for individuals and for business. Now, these three men, they were all pretty certain that the $20 million in research that they did, the economists, the businessmen, the tax lawyers, the focus groups, they were pretty sure that they were going to come back and recommend a flat tax. Instead of a graduated income tax, they were going to come back and say, no, let's just do a flat rate for everybody. And they were fully prepared to support that and promote that, but that's not the way it worked out. Instead, these people came back and they reported to McNair, to Trotter, to Lindbeck, what we need is a consumption tax. Now, let me add something here. When these people were given all of this research money and sent out to do their work, there were some requirements that had to be met, and one of them was that whatever plan they came up with had to be revenue neutral. In other words, the money to the federal government, the tax revenue to the federal government had to be the same under their plan as it was currently, revenue neutral. They couldn't come say, well, let's cut government spending by a half and do this, or let's increase government spending and do that. No, revenue neutral. So what did they come up with? A consumption tax. In other words, you pay taxes to the federal government when you consume goods or when you consume services. And that basically was going to be the only tax revenue that the federal government had. As a matter of fact, how'd the word FairTax come up with? Well, it was in one of the focus groups. After the plan was put together, they had focus groups and they would explain the entire plan to these people. In fact, one of the points of the plan that I particularly love and the people were very impressed with in these focus groups was that nobody, not one household in this country, not one, would ever pay one single dollar, not $1, to the federal government until that family, that household, had taken care of its basic needs: food, shelter, clothing, transportation. Once the family had paid for all of this out of their income, then and only then would they start paying any taxes to the federal government. And one of the people in the focus group said, well, now that's a fair tax. And that's how the name came around. Okay, so a consumption tax was proposed. What kind of consumption tax? Well, a sales tax. How much would the sales tax be? And would you pay it along with the other taxes we're paying now? Or would you eliminate some of those taxes? Or would you eliminate all of those taxes? Well, here's your answer. Under the fair tax, all of your payroll taxes would be eliminated. There would be no Medicare tax. There would be no Social Security tax. There would be no federal income tax withheld from your paycheck. To make this very simple for you as an individual, okay, imagine this. If you made $1,000 a week under your job, yep, we're going to hire you and we're going to pay you $1,000 a week. Well, how often do I get paid? You get paid every 2 weeks on Friday. You would know at that very moment, you would know that every other Friday you would take home a check for $2,000. Yeah, now, okay, I know that some states out there have state income tax that they withhold from your paycheck. But guess what? If the fair tax is enacted on a national basis, your state is not going to still charge you a state income tax. They will convert for political survival. They will convert to the fair tax on a state level because they will know that the same popular uprising that brought the fair tax on the national level is not going to tolerate an income tax on the local level. So you get paid $1,000 a week, you take home $2,000 every 2 weeks. Very, very simple. Okay, so your payroll taxes are eliminated. The withholding for federal income tax, the Social Security taxes, the Medicare taxes, they're gone because Social Security, Medicare, the cost of federal government, all is going to be funded by the fair tax. Guess what else is eliminated? All federal businesses and corporate income taxes. Come on, I've already explained to you that corporations don't pay federal income taxes, state either, for that matter. They collect those taxes from employees, from owners, and from customers and pass them on. Well, let's get rid of that stupid charade. We end all federal income taxes at the same time, okay? In fact, all federal taxes paid to the federal government, gone. You know what that means? That means that these men sitting on a board of directors, no longer do they have to worry about the tax consequences of some idea being proposed for their business or corporation, because there are no tax consequences. Do what is best for your business. Do what is best for your customers. Do what is best for your employees. Do not worry about the tax consequences of your actions, because there are none. Do you realize what would happen in our business world if corporations and businesses could work to improve, to expand without worrying about the tax consequences? If there was, Right now, the United States has the highest corporate tax rate in the world, and we have what we call corporate inversions. These are American businesses and American corporations sending themselves off, surrendering to foreign ownership. Why? To avoid the onerous taxes in this country. Well, imagine what happens if there are no taxes in this country. I can give you an idea. Businesses, corporations around the world, in Europe, in Asia, in South America, in Africa, they would say, hey, you know what? If we relocate our headquarters, if we relocate to the United States, then there will be no tax consequences for our business decisions. There will be no taxes on capital and labor. There was, many years ago, I would suggest that this was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, a survey done of CFOs, chief financial officers, of many foreign-based corporations. Foreign-based, okay? Headquartered overseas, Europe, Asia, elsewhere. The FairTax was explained to them, and they were asked the question, what would your future business plans look like if, in the United States, there was no tax component on capital or labor? It was a business and corporate tax-free environment. I'm not sure what the exact ratio was, but about, I think, maybe 60% of these chief financial officers, they said, well, if possible, our next expansion would be into the United States. Our next research and development headquarters, our next manufacturing facility, it would be in the United States. And the remaining CFOs said we would immediately start arguing to move our entire business and our headquarters to the United States. Okay, folks, think about that. What does that do for job prospects? What does that do for job prospects in this country? With the FairTax, there would be such an expansion of job opportunities in this country that you would basically have to hide under your bed to avoid a good-paying job if you had any drive and any job skills at all.